Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Hi there. Welcome to Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, and I'm your host, John Johnson. And in this segment, I'm going to be talking about, do you want out? Is it a bad relationship or something that's just not working for you? And whether it's romance, whether it's friendship, we're going to talk about some things. And do you want out? We'll be right back after this.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back. The burdens and responsibilities in relationships sometimes are a bit overwhelming, and we learn by doing. Being in the relationship, what happens? Sometimes they become stale, stagnant, and you just want to find something else to do with your time, hanging out with your friends, or even if it's a love interest, there's obviously a lot invested there. As you know, friendships and love interests have different components. Friendships, basically, you come together, and if you have things that you like that are in common, if we just go bowling on Thursdays, we can show up or not. And at least the dependence, I mean, of course, if it's a team, but the dependence is a bit different. When you're in a romance, then there's sort of an interdependence. It's understood. There's a commitment. There's something behind that gives it a lot more. And trying to get out of a relationship of that type, well, you know what? They come front-loaded with a few things, and I wanted to talk about that because I know making those transitions is very difficult. It's not something we necessarily plan for. I think we think a lot about how to get in relationships, and of course, getting out of them, that would sort of defeat the purpose. It's like, why get out if you wanted to be in it? But sometimes you're just in that space. It's that awkward space of how do you make that transition. I think it's important to be honest with yourself. What's the reason? Is it something that you don't like about the person? Are they dishonest? Do they lie to you? Have they stolen something from you? Is there, maybe it's yourself. Maybe you just want to be with somebody else, but ask yourself why. Are there health challenges? Is it financial? Did you learn something about the person that you just don't like? But there's lots of reasons. But something to consider is, you need to step back and acknowledge and recognize that there'll be a change in status, and how this is going to impact you and others around you. I mean, if there's children, there's definitely going to be an impact on that too. Now, and if you were a part of a group, it's going to have an effect on on those relationships as well. Because if you're a couple and there could be some loyalty issues there. If they were a friend with your friend, then there probably would be less of an issue. But if they were the friend of your partner that you showed up with, well, there may be some awkward moments, some glances, some things like that, and that's something to think about. Okay, how are you going to handle that? So things definitely have an impact, and the example of which is, as I shared, are you going to be ready? Something to consider is when you make that choice, it's there's going to be this void that has to be filled, and it could be some loneliness. And how do you go about changing that for you? What do you do? Some people find that having that solitude is a welcome relief. They're free of the responsibility of taking care of other things. And this could be a perfect opportunity for you to reconnect with yourself. If you've had, if being in a relationship or being in that companionship has caused you health challenges, well, there is absolutely the time now to face those, to deal with those, and improve from that. Reading. Do some reading, do some walking, reconnect with yourself spiritually. If you have a house of worship, attend services, do things that I think would emphasize yourself. Notice I'm not really pointing out a lot of things that make that put you in a lot of other social circles, because I think when you've made these kinds of transitions, you need to reconnect with yourself. You need to rediscover you. It's the opportunity to grow so that you don't fall back into the same old patterns. See, this is something that happens, and relationships are a perfect mirror to this. If you keep having some things happen over and over, in particular with the kinds of people you meet and the kinds of activities you do, and you're just not being fulfilled, well, look at what you're attracting and find out for yourself why that is. There could be childhood issues involved. It could be just something that you've never really been creative. You probably have been a follower. And there's always time to take charge of your life and to make an impact and grow from that. And you may look around and you see that other people seem to have it all together. They seem to do it. Well, I think the possibility strongly exists that they have done this work. They have been in their own space. They have figured out things about themselves. And I mean, it certainly seems a bit envious that other people seem to have their lives together. Well, you have to put the work into that in order to have that happen for you. So now is the time to do that. And by and large, as you discover more about yourself, I think you will find yourself to be interesting. And maybe you've wondered why you can't attract people. Well, if you're a follower instead of a doer, that makes it hard for other people to see you as interesting. Because the thing about being a character, being a personality, being yourself, is people are attracted to individuals that have their own sort of charisma. You know, you walk into a room, a person seems to have their stuff together. That's attractive. Because people that don't have that seem to suck the energy out of those that do. And they will not tend to gravitate towards that. So we tend to be attracted to people that have their stuff together, have a little chutzpah. And consider, I mean, where do you fall in that spectrum? You know, you may have had the awkward experience of being in a connection with someone who was very clingy. Well, you might find that they're going to want you to continue, they're going to want to be in contact with you and want you to continue to fix them. Well, you know, you're going to have to wind that down. You're going to have to find a way to separate yourself from them. And I think being honest about how you feel is certainly a first step. Again, courtesy, be polite. This is not about blowing someone out of the water and shouting bad things, because remember, there's two people here. But remembering that if you've experienced being around people who are very clingy, then ask yourself why you're attracting those kind of individuals and why you're allowing those kind of people to be in your space. Because one thing that you're probably experiencing is you're having the life sucked out of you, whether it's money, whether it's enthusiasm for doing things. And in fact, it may even feel like they're keeping you from being around other individuals you just as soon love to spend your time with. But examine that and make the adjustments as you see fit. And I think, again, looking in the mirror, having that one-on-one conversation with yourself in the mirror is going to give you an opportunity to figure that out. And it takes time. I can remember myself having been in a position where a relationship has changed, or I'm no longer with someone, and it took probably about 3 months to finally hear my own voice. And that That's really what I'm wanting you to be able to experience. Hear your own voice, not the voice of someone else talking to you, but hear your own, so that when you're thinking about this in those other moments, you're hearing, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to experience, not what someone else told you to be doing. Because even that might feel a little strange. But at least if you're hearing your own voice, then you can honor that. And whatever happens, you can experience it and know that it was something that you take ownership of. And that's very important, because we are talking about your life. And we'll be right back after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
What attracts you to someone else? That, beyond just that initial first sighting of a person where, you see them, you see their eyes, their face, their clothes, it may be the setting. It could be something that's very formal, so they're wearing really nice things, or they could be out at the beach somewhere, standing in the grocery line, whatever. There's all kind of settings in which you can meet people, but it's like, what actually attracts you to them? And I was asked this question, and what followed the conversation, what followed in the conversation had something to do with, some people are, after you've had a chance to talk with someone, you find that you have some common interests, and that builds sort of a chemistry, because you say, wow, things that we can do together. Some, they have, beautiful eyes. They just love looking at that. Some, there's a sexual tension, and it seems to build on various things. Some have taken good care of themselves. And I think that's a very attractive feature, when a person cares for themselves very well. One of the things that's very interesting is when you're attracted to someone, sometimes that could actually wind up being a fear. For example, if take a guy, he's attracted to a woman who is quite vivacious, very charismatic, very sexy, and he's with that woman, and for a while it's great. He's attracted to it because she's got all kinds of chemistry, and it's magnetic. And if there comes a point in time when he may be afraid of that, because the attraction then becomes what he's most afraid of. So if you're a woman who has a lot of chemistry, who's vivacious, gregarious, and going out there, and it can wind up becoming a person's insecurity. So is that you? Because the potential to be sidelined by the very thing that you're attracted to is real every day. And I find this fascinating, because there's sort of this approach avoidance. And this is primarily directed at women. And when you're trying to find a guy who is attracted to you, or you're attracted to him, and how that works, why some people are afraid to sort of be all in, so to speak. And this is one of the reasons, because what attracts a person to you can also become a big fear. And sometimes they don't know that. They're not aware that is their fear. But you tend to, maybe you'll get the reaction of the guy saying, well, you're you talk to everybody. You don't just talk to me. Well, that's how he met you in the first place, because you're gregarious. And if you're a guy and you have that same sort of quality, well, it can sort of make a woman feel like she's not special, like you're not focused on her. But what people in these relationships tend to forget, that is the one that's attracted to the other, is that it was the very thing that brought you into this, and you have to look at it that the person is being themselves. Now, I'm not at all suggesting that because a person is being gregarious and out there, I mean, that's part of their personality, but I'm not suggesting that there's anything dishonest about that. Recognize that you're attracted to that person for those qualities, and find out what it is about yourself that's making you feel insecure. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to take that away from the person that you're attracted to, because if you do, then they no longer, I mean, think about it. They no longer will become interesting to you. And asking a person to change for you is probably not a very safe thing to do for the relationship. Because what you have is, people come to relationships as individuals, and you want to be able to be yourself, but there's also a blend. I mean, the relationship is going to have an impact on you, and you're going to share space, you're going to share like activities, you're going to share time, and it will change you. Relationships do change. That there's a beauty in that, because you get to find your shortcomings, and you can deal with those, and you can bond, and those are beautiful things. But rethink about it. When you're attracted to somebody, are you attracted to them because you're going to change them? Sometimes you meet somebody and they look like somebody that you can change, that you can fix. They become a fixer-upper. Human beings are not fixer-uppers. You have to take them as they are and hope they want to improve on their own. What are you attracted to, and why? Think about that. And we'll be right back.
Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast. Time to hashtag everything with
Mariano and Pauline.
Hashtag Pauliano. We talk about all the fun, crazy stories on social media, from Instagram to Facebook, Twitter to Tumblr, or probably even Friendster. Join us each week as we explore the quirky side of social media. It's the Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast.
It's simple, such a sad song. The one that we rely on to get us.
And we're back. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Think about this. What is good sex to your partner? I think quite often we know what works for us as individuals, and we kind of like we know what we like our partner to do for us, with us. But are you as well versed in knowing what your partner likes? Because one of the components to a relationship is healthy and fulfilling sex, and how do we accomplish that? I know we've talked a lot about communication, and we're going to focus on that again. And the thing is, if you can't answer the question of what it is your partner likes with some authority, with really knowing the answers to those questions, you've got homework that you've got to do. You're going to have to go and ask your partner. You could use this podcast as a catalyst for getting the conversation going. I think that'd be great. But what I want you to really focus on is what your partner wants. Because one of the things that you hear about from women is guys tend to be selfish. Now, I realize that sounds like sort of a global statement, but there's a couple of extremes here. Women tend to say that guys are too selfish, and guys say that women don't seem to want sex enough. They're not spontaneous enough. Now, I realize those are extremes, but it's a lot more common than we realize. And obviously there's some role reversal there too. So sometimes women say that the guys aren't spontaneous enough and so on. But, insert yourself here. Figure out what it is that's actually happening in your relationship. And be willing, first of all, to engage yourself in this. I mean, it's a pretty fascinating conversation. I don't know too many people that get weirded out by that and don't want to talk about it, because obviously the benefits are a lot of pleasure, and I think that's what you're looking for. So it requires having a safe space. You and your partner, you're going to have to, there's obviously the communication thing. And if your communication is not so great, you're probably going to have a rough time with this. But I want you to stick it out. I want you to give it a chance, give it an opportunity to work, and begin to talk about the kind of things that you want in your sex life. Do you want it at night? Do you want it in the day? Do you want it in the afternoon? Do you want your partner to dress up a certain way? What kind of things make you feel bonded so that you want to be sexual with your partner? I think that's something to think about for women, and I hear this from them, is that they like to feel bonded to their partner, because that then makes them feel freed up. They feel sexy. They feel appreciated. They feel loved. They feel like they're part of a partnership. And in the interest of appreciating your partner in all of this, it is really important to let them know that they're special. And in feeling special, how do you accomplish that? Well, think of some ways. Maybe it's bringing flowers. Maybe it's candy. For a guy, maybe it's, hey, ladies, take him out to dinner once in a while, or fixing something special. And I think that starts to build that bond, build that connection, so that a good sexual relation, a good union can happen. Because it's very hard to just launch into this thing. I mean, it's just sort of awkward. I mean, it's not like in the movies. You just see each other and have all of this chemistry going, and you just tear each other's clothes off and then just go at it. I mean, that all sounds interesting and tantalizing, but that's not the everyday thing, because you have your day-to-day life, and you have to get interested. You have to get warmed up for it, and thinking ahead, planning to have intimate time with your partner is obviously something to look forward to. And if you're having sexual issues, one of the things to say to yourself is this about me, or is this about my partner? If you're having dysfunctional issues, men, if it's an erection thing, then you need to be talking to a doctor, because there's some underlying things that need to be dealt with. It could be prostate issues, some other issues that should be dealt with professionally. Get the help, because if you're denying your partner that intimacy, then there's a part of the relationship there that's dying, and it needs attention. And ladies, if on your end of this, if you're not sharing yourself with your partner, I mean, how are you feeling fulfilled? It certainly is something that to be made to feel special. And how do you go about that happening? It's communicate that, make that known, and the reward is there. Sex is fun, and none of us would be here without it. So it's definitely practical, but more than just being a chore. And that's the thing that we don't want to become. We don't want to be slaves to this being a chore, because that's not attractive. That's not interesting. But think about your sex. Think about what you want from it. How do you achieve that? Well, the communication is the key. Write down what you want, and then have this conversation with your significant other, so to see what you can do to negotiate something. And if you're having sexual issues, go to a competent therapist. Talk about what's happening, because being denied a basic human need, a basic human desire, is painful. And we want to get this talked about, get it out in the open. And I think in the end, you'll have a pretty good result. I'm hoping for you. And we'll be right back.
Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
I want you to pick a day where you just walk up to people that you know and just start paying them compliments. And I don't mean stuff that hit out of the park, wild stuff, something that's not even realistic. But I'm talking about, think about what you like about somebody and then share that with them. And don't make it conditional. You just do that just because you're trying to change the energy today. I think you will get a great reaction. Now, you might get a little bit of disbelief because some people might be wondering, okay, you're up to something. But put that aside. Remember, this was just because you find something that's nice about somebody today. Do that. Share a relationship with them. And I think you'll find you get some positive feedback. Be a leader in that. I mean, if you're a boss, obviously this stuff starts from the top down. You boss, go around. Say good morning to everybody. Say hello. Hey, glad you're here today. You respond. Somebody pays you a compliment, pay them a compliment back. You want some good energy going today. That's how you do it. Start it. Be cause in the matter. Be a leader. I think what it helps stimulate is just in general, being the kind of person that does that, then we begin to reconnect with people. And this is something I think a lot of us are guilty of, is we don't keep those connections there. We tend to just operate in this autopilot mode and then assume people know what we're thinking. And you got to reach out to people. That's something that I've learned to do over time, but I have to get better at it because there are people in my sphere of influence, in my sphere. There's something I have to get better at it because there are people that are in my sphere of influence who feel neglected. And, I feel bad when that happens because I'm obviously not aware that they're feeling that way. And then I find out that I may have missed acknowledging something important to them. I've got some cleaning up to do with that person. That is, people feel neglected in my sphere of influence, and I got to go back to them and say, hey, look, I'm sorry. And that shouldn't be hard. That shouldn't be as hard as it sounds. You need to own up to people and be yourself. Let them know that you're human, that you make mistakes, but that you can say you're sorry. And that goes a long way to having credibility. I mean, nowhere is it that we have to be perfect, but acknowledging your mistakes gives other people an opportunity to acknowledge theirs, and it brings peace. I had a beef with someone recently, and there was quite a bit that came of it, at least in my experience. There was a lot of things that I could have done, and I decided to stand down and to really think about it. And after a period of time, it was someone who was in a leadership position to me, and I decided that this person was probably challenged at knowing what to do. So I took it upon myself to just extend my hand and say, hey, let's bury the hatchet and make this go away. I think what I realized is that the person had a lot on their mind, and they were just challenged at being able to know what to do in a lot of the situations. So by me taking that on, by acknowledging that I could do something about it other than be a victim, then I was able to change that outcome, and it has made it better for me. So I no longer have the worry of deciding what I'm going to do about that. And that is also off that other person's plate, that every time they see me, they don't have to worry that I'm harboring some sort of resentment. And my life is better for it. So I invite you, if you have something like that that's going on for you, to offer, make a peace offering, extend an olive branch, and see if that can change. Thank you for listening. I'm John Johnson, and this is Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast.